All right, what is up, everybody? Great to be. Oh man, I got my lights off. Oh, what a scrub. Okay. Uh, Clearly, I am entirely prepared for this. This is not my first time, I promise. With the laundry basket, doing a cameo, over to the left side. So we're doing it professional here. But you know what? It is what it is. I know every time I start the stream with me saying I'm excited to be here, but man, this one, I am. I haven't been this excited since probably the last big tier list we did, um, and it's because I was kind of like mulling over the topic. Shout out to Kyle for having the idea of this as a topic. Basically having the situation of just kind of discussing bans, and because it's a rare situation in which we basically get foresight that a ban's happening, but we don't know what, right? So Brian has basically said, like, during the dev talk, that bans are coming. Um, and, we get to kind of cook a little bit. We get to say, okay, we're going to put our dev hats on, and we're going to, say, what would we do / not do? Sorry. We get to say what we would do, what we wouldn't do, and I'm gonna walk through the entire process. I'm gonna treat it as basically, we have the keys to the kingdom, right? It's our responsibility to make the decision, and I'm just gonna walk through exactly what my thought process would be. The goal for the stream is a couple of things. I want to if they haven't decided, which obviously is the case, right? If they've already decided, I think they would have probably released that information. But because they haven't, I don't think they, maybe give them a resource to kind of just look at, get an idea. Maybe not. Maybe it's completely all out to lunch. That is, an extreme possibility. But worst case scenario, they can see what all of you think, whether you agree, disagree, whatever the case may be. And creating a ban is so much deeper than a lot of people think. They think that it's fixed one thing when you have to do so many different aspects to it. You have to understand ripple effects. You have to understand the context of the community and what situation you're currently in. We're going to go into all of this and kind of explain the position that LSS is in currently and how that influences their toolbox. Because if you're in one situation, you might handle it one way. If you're in another situation, you might tackle it a completely different way. And that's going to drastically affect how we're actually going to approach this. So it goes really deep. Believe if you really give it some thought. And we're going to go in. We are going to go in. And so, in fact, I thought this stream topic was so important. I went and got a much needed haircut to get a lot more aerodynamic and efficient for the stream. So we're doing it. We're doing it. We're ready. We're somewhat prepared, not entirely, but we're gonna make it work. And I'm excited. I'm just gonna jump right in. Let me get caught up in chat real quick, but I'm really looking forward to this because I was thinking about it the past 2 times driving to work and back and how just deep it actually goes. It's actually, you give it some thought, it's pretty deep. Any chances for a codex ban? I don't think so. I truly, and we're going to get into why. From a power level perspective, it's completely warranted, but they can't do that. And I'm going to explain why. They literally cannot ban codex, and I'll explain why. Even if they wanted to, even if they agreed, if everybody at the table was like, yes, this card is too powerful, it breaks the game, they would find another way. They would hit 4 different assassin cards before they touch that one card, and I'll explain why. So like hitting assassin could be on the table, but you can't hit that card specifically, and I'll explain why. ban every card I don't like, only Guardians left. I mean, that is an idea. It's not one that we're gonna take, but it's an idea. Just bought 3 codexes. Assume that means I'll catch a ban now. I mean, you never know. Unbanned Dustblade never gonna happen. Unfortunately, it'll be Flicker late as usual. That's rude, but it was really funny. I feel like it may be Codex. No, blue CYB. My blue. I don't know. We're gonna organize the potential bans in a tier list based on likelihood. I love the idea. I dislike the pain in the ass it would be. I mean, I guess we could like type it out. But the way that I was imagining it in my head is, and I'm more than willing to pivot on the fly. I mean, we can do that. We're professionals here. I was going to basically say, this is the ban needed to accomplish this. And then because you did this, you have to do this. And so like give 2 possible bans for each solution you have to solve. It was kind of my thought process / idea. Because a tier list wouldn't necessarily work because you have multiple levers that you can pull. You don't have to solve it one way. So that's kind of the idea. What's up? Good to see everybody. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. 3 of a kind. Somebody's on to something. Bands have chain reactions, of course, ripple effects. Yep. Which, with my meteorology background, I'm very good at. Because that's all what weather is. It's like you add this variable, what changes, right? So I have a lot of experience in understanding, anytime you introduce a variable, I'm really good at identifying. I think it's one of the main reasons why I have halfway decent tier lists. I've just done it for a long time. Anytime you introduce something, I'm very good at isolating it and understanding what actually happens relative. Reaping Blade, we might be onto something, maybe, but it's interesting. It's interesting. Hey, I get to see the stream live for once. I don't have to watch posts. Well, welcome. Thank you for joining me. I do appreciate it. Tier list of how likely taking the ban. I mean, that would be a better tier list, and we could facilitate that. Melting Point should be banned as a matter of principle. I mean, it is a feel bads card if you get hit with it. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like it's a feels bad. But I don't know. Okay, let's jump straight into it. Let's get it done. Okay. First things first. Remember, we got our LSS hats on, right? We're trying to fix the upcoming situation. We're trying to come up with a solution. The first thing that you have to do before you do anything, right? You have to understand the context of the situation. Okay, this is before you even set your goals for what you're trying to accomplish. This is before everything, right? Because what we think of and decide right now is going to affect what we have the capabilities of the problems we have to solve, basically. And what do I mean by when I say we have to kind of understand the context of the situation? You have to take into consideration the current sentiment of the community. And what's an example of that, right? We just came off of the situation where it effectively took 3 bans to balance in, right? That is something that very recently happened. We had Aurora where Brian said they should have taken action but didn't. We in the past 6 months or so, maybe upwards to a year, there's been some misses. Okay, not throwing shade. I'm just strictly. Then we had the lateness of the Zephyr Needle ban. I'm just saying that the community sentiment around bans right now is probably on the lower end rather than the higher end, just looking from the outside in. And that's something you have to be conscious of, right? Because it's going to affect how heavily you pull a lever. Let me give you an example. Let's say, given this situation, we're in this position, right? Let's say you have an option. Say we're setting out to fix Florian. That's our number one mission. We have to balance Florian. He's non-interactive, whatever. And we have 3 different cards that could possibly accomplish it on different levels, right? One is like very drastic, aka like ban every color of rootbound carapace. One not so drastic would be kind of like that medium would be a tree plus weapon ban, and then one like lower end ban would be like one of those 2 cards, either tree or weapon ban, whether it be scepter or reaping blade. So if you have those 3 options and you've kind of been missing lately, right? Or the sentiment is not where you truly want it to be, you basically completely rule out the bottom one. Once again, this is my opinion. This is how I would approach the situation. If I had the keys to the kingdom, would completely rule out the possibility of the bottom. And what I meant by tiers, I meant like this is a very aggressive ban that 110% we know will work. The middle ground would be like, this has a very, very, very good chance of working. And then this is like your precision ban, like you're just trying to get it perfect, right? The idea that I'm trying to convey is you do not need to attempt a precision ban if the past year has not been ideal, right? It's very risky. You have the chance of upsetting a lot of people that are already upset about a lot of things. And once again, not trying to doom and gloom here. I'm just trying to give the context. And it's not a risk that I would be willing to absorb. So if I was approaching the situation, level 3, not an option. I have to operate within level 1 and level 2. I'm not saying you have to completely nuke it. I'm just saying when the ban resolves, when the ban is on the stack and it resolves, it has to work. It has to work. There can't be... You are much better off in this situation as LSS going a little bit over than a little bit under, because one has way higher ramifications than the other. Because if you go over, you can always pull back a little bit, and you don't want to make that the norm, obviously, right? Because then you're just playing scared, kind of. But given the current sentiment of the situation, very, very good idea to do so. During the current situation. So, all that to say is we're not going to fucking play this safe, is what we're going to do. That's our the context of the situation. Level 4 is do nothing. Yes, that is correct. And we're definitely not doing that. So, that's what I wanted to convey, okay, is the fact that we don't have the luxury to play it safe and attempt a precision ban. In my opinion, with Nats coming up, it is just a disaster if it's a miss. It truly would be a disaster. Okay? That is my opinion. Second thing on why, and this is the supporting argument for even if they 100% from a balanced perspective wanted to ban Codex of Frailty, they literally could not. You have a whole bunch of people in the community right now, due to the armory Aurora deck LLing so quickly, you have a current sentiment within the community that a lot of people's value in a deck quickly eroded. So automatically, what that does to our toolkits on what we're able to accomplish is we cannot hit high value cards. We cannot do it. It doesn't matter if, let's just paint this imaginary situation where if you removed Codex, or just a card, use a card, for example, that was a high value card. And it created like this balance bliss, right? You would be tempted, or at least I would, to not fucking do it. Even if you knew even if you knew what was happening. And so, because you just can't hit people's wallet back to back like that. It's like people are willing to take a hit, but if you give them 2 hits in a row, anybody that, like, just imagine Aurora player just loses their deck and they go buy Codexes for Assassin and get reamed, right? It's like, shit. Like, I mean, that player will never play the game again. Just simple, like plain and simple. Will not play this game again. So that concludes the context. Our current context is the community is sensitive to price evaporation, right? Or AKA their wallets dissolving, being vaporized literally. They're very sensitive to that scenario. So no legendaries, no felling of the crown, no codex of frailty, no shelter, no, all of those cards are completely off the table. I would never in a million years attempt that ban. It would be, I'm just gonna say how it would be the dumbest shit ever, in my opinion, to do that in the current sentiment. 6 months from now, let's have that conversation when the community is, when the community has kind of like had time to kind of recoup. But this just happened, and you can't hit people back to back. Now, of course, bans are going to affect people regardless, but you cannot just take out a $90 card. You can't do it. So those are completely off the table. No legendaries, no high value majestics. Cannot be banned, period. It doesn't matter if we have to ban 4 cards to have the equivalent throughput of that 1 card. We're going to do that because we can't hit people's wallet. It is something that we cannot do contextually. Okay. So that's our 2 pieces of context. We have price sensitivity, and we can't undershoot the ban with a precision ban. We have to make sure it's done. There's a lot of heat for national season. There's a very short prep window for all the players already. This is making it slightly worse. It has to just be done. Okay. So now we have, I don't disagree with the tunic aspect. I don't disagree with it, but I'm just saying right now, it would be the worst decision LSS has ever made if they ban tunic right now. I don't think they ever will. I'm just saying right now would be literally the worst time to ever do it. And so we've set the context for the situation. We understand what we are against. Okay. Now we need to establish, what are we trying to accomplish? What we know we need to make a ban because Brian said so. Not that I know. I'm just saying Brian said expect something on the bans. So I'm assuming that there is a reason, something that we have to solve to make the game a better experience or make the competitively more balanced, whatever the case may be. So now we have to identify what is our problem. Okay? Now, 5 weeks ago, I ran a stream that predicted an outcome that happened, right? I predicted that Florian and other non-interactive decks were going to immediately take over the meta with Aurora's departure. And even before the second Enigma left was their window. And we saw it immediately happen with Florian, who I'd literally put at the top of my tier list when I made it 5 weeks ago. I said that he was going to come in, be non-interactive, and take over the game. Is literally what I said. And we literally see that because he's literally almost taken as much share in 1 week as Aurora. And he's going to absorb a hell of a lot more this next week, right? So that planned out. Okay? Now, with that being said, we're going to double down on that situation. We're going to say that we were right, that the thing that we're trying to combat is non-interactiveness, right? If we can take care of that problem, we fix the game. It becomes more balanced, right? Because people will come up with solutions. But more, the unique situation about this particular ban is I think it's actually less about balance for the game. Because like I said in the last stream, Florian's actually, he's the best deck in the game right now. I think undisputedly, but there's about 5 decks that can really prey on him. There are ways to completely dumpster that deck. There's a lot of decks that have 90 10s into Florian, right? Kano is one, I mean, there's a few out there. The problem is like Florian almost auto wins into everything else. That's kind of where the problem lies. And so with that being said, what we're trying to combat, we know we have to hit Florian, okay? Is there any other deck, the thing that we need to know after that, okay? So our first thing on our goal sheet of what we're trying to accomplish. So we have our context. Now we're trying to figure out what we're trying to accomplish. And the first thing on that list is we have to hit Florian. Florian has to be hit. Now we have to ask ourselves, why does Florian need to be hit? And the answer to the question, which is going to go into how we pick our cards, is what makes Florian so good, depending on your viewpoint, is he has the ability to not be interacted with. There's not enough of the card pool that says target aura do this, right? There's few cards that say scour, there's rolling fissure, things like that, but not every class has that. There's no jagged edge that says instead of dealing damage, blow up this many auras or rune chants or there's no cards like that. Although LSS make that card. It was designed here. Just do like a jagged edge reaction. It would be like take jagged edge and shatter and make it blow the fuck up of auras. So it would be a reaction. Give it a little pump, like +2, little cheeky 2, and then instead of dealing damage, destroy X number of auras, where X equals the damage that would have been dealt. 0 cost yellow, because it's warrior. You can't give him everything. I'm just saying. That's hot. That's hot. All right. That was free, LSS. Okay. I'm not even on payroll. That was free. Anyway, I digress. So, what makes Florian so broken is the fact that he's not interactable. Okay? And which is a problem, right? And so we have to fix that. So whatever solution we come up with for Florian, it has to, you can't just bring his power level down. It does not solve the issue. The problem is he's not interactable. Okay? Instead of damage, let you push it quite a bit more. Yeah, you could do +3 on it then. Yeah, you could do that. 0 cost +3 yellow instead of dealing damage blow. Yeah. Just a Rada Scour to be a generic. I'd be down for it, to be honest. Okay. So we know we can't just hit Florian. We have to attack his ability to be non-interactive. Which means we can't abolish the rune chant token. We can't do anything crazy like that. But just whatever we do, we have to tackle that aspect of it. It's very important. We have to deny his ability to be non-interactive and basically force the deck into a mid-range game plan that is going back and forth at some, that means felling is okay. That means plow under is okay. Things like that. Okay. That's our first objective, is we have to balance Florian. Now, then what we have to do, second thing we have to come up with, and we're about to get into this. Be patient, chat, please. What we're going to do after this is we're going to design a scenario. And yes, we're going to utilize a tier list to do this because I don't know how the fuck else to do it. Okay. We're not making a tier list. What we're going to do is we're going to use a tier list to understand the ripple effects. We're going to say, okay, if this moves, does it open up a window of opportunity for something else? And we're going to kind of play with it in that manner, is kind of the idea. Okay. So, with Florian going away, does that create a scenario where the first comment on the stream was, "Is there a tier list today?" I had to deliver. Tier monger Nathan. That's fun. Oh, that's too good. That's too good. So that's what we're going to do there. We're going to use a tier list to analyze the ripple effects of decisions and then pull back if it's too much, or put forward another ban to cancel out that ripple, which may cause another one. We have to keep going till it lessens and lessens and lessens, right? Or we have to retrace back and rebuild, is kind of what we have to do. Okay. So hit Florian, understand ripple, adjust. That is our game plan. Now, we are going to go ahead, right? And can't ban root bound because you hit verdance, right? And those are all the things that we have to consider when making these decisions, right? We have to understand, we have to understand what we're hitting when we do it. We have to understand, sometimes it's just like too bad, right? Like they had to get rid of high octane, right? Completely ruined Max as a hero, right? Literally overnight. He was already, we got Curtis to back it up. He was already like mid and a half with high octane, and they literally put him in Betsy and Olympia tier. Just overnight, right? Which is not ideal. And so that's the idea. That's what we're setting out to accomplish. So for anybody that just hopped in, we've had about 100 people hop in since we went over the last contextual thing. Just kind of review the past 20 minutes for anybody that's just showing up. We set the context of the situation. We can't hit any high value cards. It is not an option due to the community sentiment revolving around the Aurora LL and people losing value in their cards. Okay? So hitting anything $50 and up, not an option. Not even on the table, even if it's the perfect solution. We cannot do it. Number 2. I apologize. I think I just like dropped gigaframes out of nowhere, but let me know, chat, if I'm back. Okay, I think we stabilized. Yeah, I caught it, Kyle. I was like, red's not good, right? I looked down, I was like, red's not good. But we're good now. We did it. I just had to call the other hamsters. We got new hamsters that are providing our internet, running on wheels. Okay, we're good now. We did it. Okay, so that's the context of the situation. We can't undershoot. We have to get it done. Getting dust by Alice says saying high value band would be dumb. I'm just saying, and I'm not wrong. And we can't touch high value cards. We just cannot do it. Not an option. So those are 2 rules that I don't care what you say in chat. I just cannot entertain it. No high value cards, and we can't undershoot the ban, right? We have to. If our goal is to fix flooring, we gotta fucking fix it. We're not going to play around like it. We have to know that when this card is removed, there is no doubt that the problem is solved. Okay? Which basically means this is not what we're setting out to do, but it is our measurement of effectiveness. Flooring is not allowed to be the best deck in the format post-ban. That's the simplest way to state what I'm trying to accomplish. Okay. If he is the best deck in the format post ban, we fucked up. That's basically what I'm saying. Okay, so we have to do those things. Now, our first thing what we're trying to accomplish, once again, finishing the recap, we know we have to hit Florian. That's our number 1 goal due to non-interactiveness. And then we have to understand the ripple effects that come from that and basically adjust from there, rebuild and restructure. And then there's some other outliers that I actually want to hit first that are very interesting. Some people have kind of alluded to it in the comments or in chat. And that is, there could be a situation where we have to hit something upcoming for high Cs, which I think is a very, very good possibility. And the first card that I want to mention in our ban discussion that's kind of on the table is the first thing that I want to mention is Death Dealer. Okay, now Death Dealer on the surface is not an overly broken card. Okay, obviously it's been in the format a long time. It is not it's not an issue. Just one thing that I want to bring up, and we can't really go too deep into it because this is pure speculation. But there was some time ago that either James or Brian or somebody in LSS said the average the average development cycle of a set is about a year and a half. I think a year and a half to 2 years. And that is like how long it takes to actually, develop the set. And about a year and a half, 2 years ago, Azalea was just going on a tear. If I remember correctly, Brody was like winning every other event with her. You had Justin winning the calling. I mean, Azalea was just really, really performing. And I believe that they could have developed high Cs with the thought that Death Dealer would not be around due to a Azalea LL before the set was released. And if that's the case, you basically have to do something, right? Or I guess you don't have. Yes, you do. Do you? I mean, that plays out a couple ways, right? Like either, okay, the new Ranger utilizes Death Dealer way better and kind of breaks the cards going into high seas a lot better with Death Dealer. So all the LL points shift to there. So you don't have the failsafe of Azalea absorbing those points quickly and LLing, right? Because that's you have a check valve there that can happen, if she takes off the first 2 weeks of Nats and LLs real quick, then I'm not saying it's ideal. I'm just saying if they went into the process thinking that card would not exist, they may have to balance. That is pure speculation. I have no clue. That is just pure speculation, plain and simple. I don't have anything else to base that off of. It is just an idea. Because if I was in their shoes a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I would think that Azalea would be LL'd right now, but she's not. And Azalea turns into Katsu at that point. She 100% does. And that's why I don't know. I'm just saying that could be a situation that needs attention. But that's pure speculation. Okay. Moving on past that real quick. There is 3 of a kind as well. That is either a card like Zephyr Needle that they have been intending to ban 6 months ago, and they're going to post the text receipts and everything, or they're not going to ban it. I don't think. The point that I'm trying to make with 3 of a kind is they're not currently discussing 3 of a kind. I think that decision has either been made in lieu of high seas, or it's not going to happen, right? So 3 of a kind, it's either already penciled in, or it's not going to happen. Period. But there's a valid, there's a valid answer. The video is behind. If you just close it out, reopen it, or refresh it, it should calibrate, should fix. So if you do all of that, okay. So that's our 2 like pre-high seas situations, right? Now let's get into the meat and potatoes. We got a problem to solve, and chat, I'm going to need your help. We're going to try to work through this. So once again, remind everybody, no expensive cards, period, none. And we have to know it works. When we're done with the band, we're like, yeah, this works. Okay. So now we have to hit Florian. What makes Florian the best deck in the format right now? And what makes Florian the best deck in the format is his non-interactiveness. Okay. The ability to just generate rune chant, sit back, and not interact with the other hero on the other side of the table. Now, how does he do that? So we have to identify how he accomplishes that game state. And the answer to that question is he has so much rune chant generation that he has the ability to basically, the answer is he can without pressuring his life total too low, he can get to 40 rune chants. That is the equation. Okay. So we have 2 angles of attack here if we want to hit Florian. We can either hit his rune chant generation, option 1, or we can hit his runway, right? Let's say the Florian deck has an average, before they have to release the rune chants due to the life totals going down for an average deck, not Phi, Syndra. I'm talking about a normal aggressive deck. We'll say Assassin, right? How many turns does Assassin get to put pressure on Florian to where he has to discharge his rune chants, or he's worried he's going to die? I don't know the answer to that question mathematically, but just for an example, let's use 10 turns. Okay. on average, in 10 turns, an assassin can dwindle Florian's life total down to where they can't keep a hand, they can't keep the attack, even ninth blade, to actually resolve it to release the rune chance, right? So we have two options to balance Florian. We reduce his ability to make rune chance, or we take the 10 turn game span and basically reduce his defensive capabilities to make it where he only gets 7 turns. That's our two options. Okay. Now, one thing I want to specify here. Can you let Tonks out? Sorry. Dog is like at the door. Okay. Sorry about screaming in the mic. I thought this mute button worked, but I forgot since I got Tonks is the dog. Tonks. Ever since I got the XLR thing, I gotta tap like that. Okay, I can't hit the mic. Good to know. Sorry about screaming in your ear. I apologize for that. So that's our two avenues. We either reduce the ability to make rune chance, or we reduce the runway that Florian has the ability to be defensive, maintain higher life totals. Okay. Now where that Tonks? Tonks is just gonna steal the show. Okay. So those are our two options in handling the Florian. What is Tonks from? Isn't it like a Harry Potter thing? My wife does Harry Potter, but she reads the books, watches the movies. I do not. So I'm just curious. I think that's where it's from, right? Tonks uses pommel. That makes sense. Ban Tonks. Okay. We're down. So that's our two options. Okay. So what cards could we ban that reduces... We're going to evaluate option 1. Reduce Florian's ability to generate rune chance. Okay? We're going to try and take this approach and see what we can come up with. Okay? And the answer... So we have a couple options here. We can hit Read the Runes. We can hit Tree. We can hit Scepter. Like, you have to get bang for your buck, right? You can't hit like reduce to rune chant. I saw that one in chat. Yes, I agree with like how stupid the card can be on a value basis, right? Especially when Florian's turned on. If you took that card out of the equation, I guess the unique thing about reduce to rune chant is it does hit both sides of that equation. It reduces his runway, right? Because that's 1 less 4 block. And it reduces his ability to make rune chance. So we're gonna put that in our pocket. It's actually, now somebody mentioned in chat, we have to address the real problem, and that is Autumn's Touch. That is not what's going to happen. If they ban blue fruits of the forest, I'm going to lose it. I'm going to actually have a fit. And Brick is going to be there on Twitter to tell me to get over it. That was the best tweet ever. Oh, man. It was so funny. Oh, shout out to Brick. Okay. So, very good. Target is reduced to rune chant. I agree. A second, which is one of my personal favorite cards to kind of target, is Tree. Why Tree? It basically reduces the closure power because I don't think there's any world where a Rune Blade should be able to put you in a spot to where you need to run AB3. Like, honestly. So, like, if you got rid of tree, my thought process is scepter's no longer an issue. Is that a fair statement, chat? And also, like, Verdance uses tree, but she doesn't lean on it, right? Like, it's not like you're not hitting like root bound or yeah, we don't want errata. Errata is like yeah, like errata is like literally the worst case scenario, right? But my main thing with tree is a rune blade should never put you in a spot to where you need to run more than one AB. Because I think that it kind of breaks the expectation. One, it's you're playing this guessing game before it's just not a good place to be. Okay, so those are two very solid choices. If you take tree, then you have the ability to let's scroll up. Scepter has Kraken Aether Vein problems more than tree does, in my opinion. I guess if you took out Scepter, then you basically hit tree without hitting Verdance because the only thing you would amp is a rune chant. But having tree out on an OTK strategy is just 3 rune chants worth of damage, basically. But it's actually okay and healthy for a tree to be in mid-range Florian because it's a 3-block Earth card. And to get maximum value, you're forcing Florian to keep cards and engage with the other opponent. I actually like that thought process. I will retract my statement. I think tree is a worse ban than scepter. So currently, where I'm at is reduced to rune chant and scepter. Okay, this reduces. It forces them into Reaping Blade, and the 2-card 5 thing is cool. Like to be honest, like more than any, that is, I think that's Florian's identity is the grasp into Reaping Blade. To me, that is the most Florian thing you could do. Period. All colors of reduce. That's an interesting call out. If you hit red reduce, do they just throw in the yellows? You lose 1 block. That's valid. I think you have to take out the whole card and not just the color. Right? Is that how you... Yeah, I think that's how you have to approach the situation, unfortunately. If they ban Scepter, Reaping should be banned too. I don't necessarily agree with that. Because if you remove their ability to OTK, the life gain because the only reason people are trying to utilize life gain in the format right now is they're trying to increase the ceiling that Florian has to reach before he can discharge his rune chants, right? That's the main reason we have life gain in the format right now, currently. So with that being said, I like the idea of Scepter of Pain and Reduce all colors. Now, we have a couple cards, right, on our list that we're attempting to hit, okay? Now we need to pause for a second, stabilize, and ask ourselves before we go any further, because we can name 100 cards, read the runes. We can name Malefic. We can name Thistlebloom. We could name Arcane Seeds. We can name all kind of stuff, right? The question we need to answer now is, because we have 2 cards on the board, does the combination of those 2 cards, is that enough? If we banned Scepter and Reduced to Rune Chant, those 2 cards, and also Reduced to Rune Chant is kind of swappable with one of the Rootbound Carapace colors. Look at that spot as like, that's negotiable, right? We can talk about that. We can kind of like, later when we do the ripple effects, we'll look at, okay, Nathan, why did Viscerai's OTK strategy seem fair while Florian somehow doesn't? Too many ways to make rune chants now. So the difference is, right? The outcome is the same. I see your point, Chance. The difference is Viscerai has to actively play a bunch of cards to make rune chants. And he's actually incentivized, because his hero scales on a per card played basis. He's incentivized to play cards offensively. When you play cards offensively, you are indirectly being more interactive, right? Whereas it's a little bit, I agree. Look, I'm gonna Viscerai, when he left, was kind of inappropriate. I think something should have been hit. Probably Malefic, if I'm being honest. Would have been like completely fair. But comparing the two, I think it comes down to play experience. Granted, getting high rolled by Mordred Tide is not a good play experience. However, I think the difference of block, play 1 card, make rune chants, block, play 1 card, make rune chants, is vastly different than take 12, Mordred, Malefic, read the runes, right? Because there is a back and forth aspect. You're not just beating your head against a wall. And maybe it's just the pace of play that really makes it a lot more palatable, maybe, is the right way to say it. But I do agree that there's very similar ground there. But that's the way that, and I'm more than happy to be wrong in that. Because like I said, if during Viscerai's final days, the whole block make rune chance thing, it was kind of sus. And it wasn't overly broken because he was never like overly represented. It just had a non-interactive kind of aspect to it, and not ideal. So I do agree with what you're saying, but I also think it's a little bit different, a little bit. Let me get caught up in chat. You guys are blasting in the chat right now. I appreciate it. I need to get some ideas. Out of box approach or rule cap tokens. Creating 10 tokens on each side. Okay. Very creative idea. Hands down, right? Capping tokens. Hugely creative. Something I probably would have never thought about. However, we cannot even speculate on that decision, right? Because we don't know what is 2 years down the pipeline. There could be something down the pipeline that is literally designed to get 40 of something, but it's not as impactful as a rune chant, right? So it's a creative idea. I don't know if it would work. The problem is I can't understand the ripple effect when I don't know what's down the line, because that is a fundamental change to the game. That is not a card ban. That is like, but cool idea. I have no way to evaluate it, is what I'm trying to say, if I articulate it correctly. I want to see Rotwood. I want to see some Rotwood Weepa too, but I don't think it's going to happen. Just unban Art of War, let Ninja reign supreme again. It would be a solution. It would completely inject Ninja back into the game, very, very much so, to the point to where it might actually create a whole different problem. And given some information I have that I can't necessarily share, it's nothing like super secret. It's just a conversation that I have not been given permission to share the details of said conversation. I think it's unlikely that they make that move. I think they're a little bit hesitant to just let aggro completely dominate again. I think they're very hesitant to do that. Read the runes, good idea. It's on the table currently. All Runeblade stuff should Sutcliffe. Oh man. Full CYB. We're gonna get into CYB. Trust me. Everybody's up in arms about it. We're gonna get on it. We're gonna get on it. Also, another thing for the Art of War ban is you have. I've mentioned this before a couple past streams. Is they had like these are like our development philosophies, whatever they called them, and if you unban it, you're like reversing the philosophy that was just implemented. And did you even give it time to like come to fruition? I don't think Art of War is a realistic kind of situation. She's killing me. She is killing me. Literally. I think it's more useful to ban runechant cards that don't require a refund and action point. Being able to convert a hand while the opponent sets up a big turn is huge. Okay. I think you hit reduce versus root bound, so your all inverteds don't get. Oh, you hit reduce versus rebound. Okay. Yeah. We those two are kind of in that unban red bonds. I agree. Bonds, we're talking about Katsu bonds. Has anybody tested bonds in Syndra? Like, you have to ask that question. You almost in and everything. I don't think bonds would be good in Syndra. But with that being said, Katsu lasted for a year with bonds, and there was never an issue, right? So I think I think it can come back from a power balance perspective. The question is, do they want it to? Do they want it to do they want it in their design space? That's the question that needs to be answered. From a balance perspective, I think you get the green light. Like, it is not a broken card in Katsu's hand. Okay. The problem is, do they want to have to? It's kind of like that Berserk situation where do they want to have to play around it for forever? So, if you're a Katsu player, I think this ban is like make or break. I think if Bonds doesn't get unbanned on this next one, it won't happen for 2 years. I think it's for that card specifically. Either it's time because Zen's gone, and LSS makes the stance of Bonds is not a problem, Zen was the problem, and they reverse that situation, you're good. But if you don't get Bonds back, this ban announcement, I don't think you're getting it back. I think at that point, LSS has basically inadvertently decided we don't want to play around that in our design space. It is effectively what the result of that decision inadvertently would be. But I agree, from a balance perspective, I give it the green light. The question is, do they want to mess with it? And it's a valid point on their end. Like, it's extremely valid. You have to respect the aspect of it makes their job a lot harder, right? It kind of limits what boundaries they can test. So let's keep going down. So, okay. chat is flying, and I'm losing stuff. I'm sorry. I'm just stuff is everywhere. Good problem. Good problem to have. I'm just, if you have like a really good point that you're really trying to get across, maybe put it in there twice, because there's a good chance I'm already past it. But yeah, unbanned bonds, I'm for it. I give my thumb of approval. Any concerns with splash damage? Yes, we're going to get into all of that once we come up with a good solution for Florian. So we have those two cards, Scepter and Reduced to Rune Chant. Now, we have to ask the question, because of our context from earlier, if we ban those two cards, are we 100% positive? No doubt in our mind that Florian is no longer in contention for the best deck in the format. What do you think, chat? That's the question we have to answer. I mean, that's ultimately what we're trying to answer. If we take those two cards out of the equation, does it? And okay, so if you take out Scepter, your new matchup gets worse because their disruption goes a lot further because you can't just tree and then go over. People gain sideboard slots via equipment if their game plan is to kind of outlast what you're trying to do. You make the mirror much less degenerate. That's another thing we have to talk about. Okay, so the Florian mirror, this is good for anybody that plans on playing a ProQuest in the next week. You can basically include two cards in your sideboard, and you can basically never lose the mirror, and that is the Sutcliffe Book and Tiara. Okay, if you have those two cards in your deck, you can't lose the mirror. Now, if your opponent also has those cards, guess what? You can't win it either. You can't lose it, but you can't win it. The natural solution to that game state is a draw, okay? Because you're both building rune chants, and basically once, and it's going to be an equivalent rate. Like some people are going to go a little bit higher, some people are going to go a little bit lower, but you can never fire and kill because Tiara will absorb it, right? Because then they'll just wash the rune chants and then you both build up. Because mathematically, the reason that this happens is you basically do a card per rune chant value, okay? So you take a Florian deck and you say, I can make 80 rune chants. I'm just throwing out a number, right? If I resolve this card, all these cards, I can make 80 rune chants, okay? And that means on a per hand basis, you're going to be accumulating at X rate, right? And some may be faster, some may be slower, whatever the case may be. There might be a gap, but Tiara cancels out the effectiveness of that gap, because without Tiara, you could theoretically have a strong start, get up to 40 above them and kill them, right? You can't do that with Tiara because let's say your opponent gets to 20 rune chance and you're at 60, right? Like you're like, oh, okay, then that's, or you get to 40. You basically have to you would have to have every rune chant generator at the top of your deck and every one of theirs at the bottom of their deck, basically, is the only situation where that game actually resolves. Okay? And so we obviously don't want that to happen. Okay? So if we get rid of Scepter and we get rid of Reduce, you still have that aspect. You have the impact of I will go as far to say as Florian is the worst mirror match Flesh and Blood has ever had. I'll say that. I would say that Florian is the worst mirror match that LSS has ever created. You can't give me one that's worse. You just can't do it. You can't say Kano's actually a really good mirror match, in my opinion. You just can't do it. There's not one. It does not exist. Illusionist matchup, not as bad, right? Sure, one high roll decides the game. That sucks. I get it. It can take number 2 spot. But I would rather the game end not in my favor than not end. Okay. Basically, you can't have a game state where the game can't conclude. Like if both players play optimally, the game doesn't conclude. Oldemir was great, actually. Like Oldemir was actually like it was skill intensive. Better player won. What do you mean? It was a slog, but like, you know, is that a problem if 2 people want to bring decks that people hate playing against and they have to play against each other? Oh well. I would be more concerned for like it's basically the same premise as Ball Lightning. When Ball Lightning was originally banned, the community's perspective on this banning was not that it was a broken card, because it was based 90% of the time it was 3 go again, right? Like that. Sure, it did a little bit of extra damage, but the damn card didn't even block, right? It was really like 3 go again with a little bit of upside, right? Good card, don't get me wrong. But the community sentiment around the card was a lot of people believed that Ball Lightning was banned because the ruling on the card and how it interacted with Null Rune and Sting of Sorcery and like arcane effects was very convoluted. A lot of judge calls and just it was a hassle to have in the game. I'm not saying that's why it was banned. All I'm saying is that's what the community believed at the moment it was banned. I'm not saying that's what it was or wasn't. And I think having a similar situation is the exact same. Like, okay, yes, if 2 people want to like make themselves suffer, let them. Okay, but like, what side effects come with that? You have prolonged game. Everybody's going to time now. It's not good. Okay, let's get caught up in more stuff. Flurry was slowed down. The dishonoring Flurry would slow down rune chance. It would. Katsu might actually be. I have not looked the new blue card that replaces its name and shit. I have not looked at that with bonds. If there's a rough interaction, it's not going to happen. But you know, why are we target banning Florian specifically besides the mirror? Why are we target banning Florian specifically besides the mirror? So you're saying that the only bans we should make involve the mirror? Well, I anticipate Florian's win percentage next week to be 35% of the Pro Quest, literally. And you're not getting that on mirrors. So you have to fix the deck, and then you have to make the mirror not just completely degenerate. So Florian will always be a non-interactive deck. I don't believe that to be the case. So if we look at the first version of Florian that came out, where it was like Reaping Blade, kind of like keep a high life total, get turned online, and then start doing like Make Rune Chant Swarming, Reaping Blade, and Fellings and stuff like that, resolving just good cards, pitch stacking your Arcane Seeds for second cycle so you get more value from them, things like that. That's interactive. Blocking 2 cards, sending 2 cards is interaction. Okay? Stacking up 40 rune chance is not. So that's the axes that we have to attack on. I'm not saying that I was just asking, why is it bad that Florian is best deck in format? I didn't realize you thought he would. I am doubling down and saying right now Florian is by a mile best deck in format. There are 4 to 5 decks that beat him and have very, very good matchups into him, but that doesn't conclude the fact that he's literally going to win 35% of the ProQuest next week or this weekend. Do you think no block aggro decks should have bans too? I don't understand the question. Like, there's no block aggro deck that. So when you say no block aggro deck, I immediately just go to like Fi and Syndra. Like Fi and Syndra are not plaguing the meta in any way, shape, form, or fashion. But I don't understand that point. They're non-interactive as well. That is incorrect. If I attack you with a card, you then make a decision on whether you want to block or not. That is interaction. Is it deep? Are we playing 3D chess? No. It is on the simplest level. The point is, it's interaction. You are involved in the game in some way. Whereas if I stack 40 rune chants, you could go to the restroom and it doesn't interact with my game plan at all. I could just keep playing. That is the definition of non-interactive. Because if I attack you, you have a decision in the game. That is the very basis for interaction. When somebody plays an aggro deck, they themselves are making the decision that they're not going to interact on the defensive side of the game, which does not impact you in any way. That is a personal decision that they can make that does not influence you in any way. Whereas the vice versa of that situation is you're just there watching them play solitaire and put cards in front of cards, right? That's the difference. Do we have a short list of bans you're thinking of thus far? Sorry, just showing. So we got like preemptive stuff we got like Death Dealer 3 of a Kind, maybe if they didn't plan for it being LL'd. Currently, we're finishing up our talk on Florian. Currently, we're on like Scepter and Reduced to Rune Chant, but we're also kind of understanding that there's some degeneracy in the mirror that may need fixing. Either the banning of Tiara or Sudcliffe, the book. I mean, we burned all the other books, so why not just add to the list? So wouldn't Florian just argue then that they're simply putting the onus on the opponent to surmount their defenses similar to playing against fatigue? But it's not fatigue, right? They're building to 40 and killing you, and there's nothing you can do about it. You're sitting down, and if your deck does not present consistently 16 damage every single turn, offensively, you lose the game. It's that simple. Or extract 16 value worth of like disruption / other effects, whatever the case may be. If you can't do that, you lose the game. The game is decided when you sit down. That is the basis of interaction. Going against aggro decks, you can block better. You can not be tempted to block. You can have a strategy where you change your equipment to race down the life totals to get them blocking first. I mean, there's so many different, the interaction is different. So as by your definition of interaction, does it mean that CYB is not into the kind of problem? Yeah, CYB does support non-interactiveness. I agree with you. Absolutely. So CYB would go into the section of it supports the play of being non-interactive. And, you know, it, is what it is. So, and we're going to hit that probably next. So what we have to do first is we have our idea of Florian. We have some ideas on what we may want to change. First, so basically we have 3 cards. Holy shit. Maybe there's a way to do it better, but we have I'm going to say Tiara, and although Tiara is such a good card, maybe it's the book. God, putting a weak ass card on the ban list though just feels wrong. I'm about to go to the tier list. I'm about to go to it. Oh Lord, here we go. Okay. So let me pull up chat on the other screen, get everything situated. All right. Commence mission to make Florian Betsy tier. We don't have to go that far, but we have to guarantee he's not at the top. That we have to. So the current situation, okay, this is kind of the current situation with Aurora gone, is you basically have Prism, Kano, and Verdance, and then probably Mario New. Where's Mario? Oh, Jarl's up there too. Jarl's really good. Who am I missing? New go up here, probably something like that. Actually, because he has a little bit better Florian matchup. Celio's also pretty decent in this situation. Levi is fine. It's weird. I don't believe in Kasai. I'm sorry. I am sorry. I think Fang's actually pretty decent. No memes. Dreadbore. We're going to say Dreadbore, Riptide, or Azalea. Those are interchangeable. Just Dreadbore, the card, is good right now. Bravo, Giga Fatigue is up there, especially when Florian takes a hit. And then we have kind of like the Draconic Ninjas that are just kind of hanging out. Okay. So this is kind of our major meta situation here currently. I know a lot of people are going to say Slippy, Yes, I have Mario over Slippy, and the thought process there is with the dagger variant of Mario, he's much less susceptible to losing a match when people are willing to block. Whereas a lot of Skippy's value is extracted from on hits. And if the meta is very defensive, now, after the meta, when it changes, if we go to an aggressive meta, then these two swap immediately. So if we get a meta where like Fi comes out or Syndra becomes like one of the top decks, then Slippy is by a mile better than Mario. No contest. But into Florian, this is just how it is. Finally, something I agree with Nathan on. I don't believe in Kasai. Oh man, it's just taking longer for people to get on the deck. Yeah, the dagger variant is just the way to be playing the deck, plain and simple. Like it's just been, we have found that out. So this is kind of the situation. I know Vincett's not up there, and that's because her food went away. That the whole Aurora matchup was like the reason to play her. So Vinny, I think, doesn't make the top cut really, to be honest. And Levi is like an honorable mention. She could fit into that situation, which is odd for me to say, but I think she has like actual potential to kind of fit into that situation. Okay. So, with that being said, let's do our first ripple analysis where, okay, we're mainly attacking Florian's Runechant generation capability. That's the main thing that we're attacking. And then we're also reducing the runway a little bit in combination with the reduced to Runechant ban. So we're just going to assume that this was effective and Florian drops. Now we have to ask ourselves what happens next. Okay. So immediately when that happens, okay, New's worst matchup is gone. Literal worst matchup. And New it becomes infinitely better. Okay, just way better. Okay, Acilio would take a hit because now people have a little bit more pep in their step. Maybe he's kind of like, when people are. Acilio's really good when people don't want to do anything, but when people are really urgent, running interactive stuff, I'm not saying he's bad. He's just going to take a dip, right? I think that's a pretty fair assessment. I think the Wizards are still great. I don't think they really move all that much, depending. One thing that I do want to put forth, and it's another concern that we're going to get to next, is, believe it or not, you guys are going to think I'm crazy. I think our first ripple effect that we have to overcome is Giga Fatigue Bravo. That is the first hump that we have to overcome. Now, this is basically referring to like Kill McCreef's kind of list where it's like just Giga Fatigue, CYB, Life Gain, Rampart, just the most degenerate shit on the planet. Okay. That is kind of the next concern, right? Because we're trying to solve the Florian situation, but I think we're also just trying to tackle the non-interactive kind of aspect. I guess, blocking is interaction, but I don't know. This might be a bias of mine. I'm willing to accept that as a loss. This is a, yes, 12 Crippling Crush, 3 Remembrance Bravo. That is exactly what I'm referring to. And I think you have to hit this deck in some way because the reason that this deck is not what it is right now is because of Florian. As much as I don't like Florian right now, what he's doing to the meta, he is solving this problem. He's basically not allowing people to do this shit, okay? And basically, if you're not familiar with what the deck's trying to do, it basically just blocks. And then when you get down to that shitty cycle, he just throws cripplings, remembrances them back in, cripple, whatever, tear asunder, all that stuff, right? And just kind of whittles you down. And it's really good against New even because like you can actively like interact with it. There's you have righteous cleansings to maybe get the some chi cards or whatever. Mask is obviously a problem, right? Because it does banish cards. But you actually have a lot of game because you can just extend the runway so much and present a lot of discard effects with the Crippling Crushes to not allow the reactions is basically what I'm saying, which is a very good spot to be in. So it actually makes the new matchup much more tolerable. Your other matchup, your Wizard matchup is still fucked, although you Arsenal Oasis and they have to be the better player, right? We're used to that situation. Unfortunately, I don't like to admit it. Whether you're the best Kano player in the world, it is an effective strategy because of what it does is it basically says, look, if you're not the top 20% of Kano players, I'm going to win this game. It's literally that simple. Either you have the capabilities to do it or you do not. And if the game doesn't go any other way, there's no high roll, there's can you set up the perfect deck? If the answer is yes, congratulations, you win the game. If the answer is no, which a lot of people cannot do, then that's just how it is. The year's 2025, Nathan fears fatigue has forced him into putting Bravo at the top of the meta again. I'm just saying we have to get ahead of this problem. Look, I'm just saying, who was right 5 weeks ago? I said that the meta was headed for shit, basically. And here we are, got Brian on the Dev Talk saying big change is coming. Well, turns out, now we're not doing a tier list. We're using it to kind of study the movement of ripple effects is what we're doing. So that brings us to the Bravo solution. I want to solve that. Now we have two options here. One, everybody's going to love, and one a little bit more outside the box. One, we completely get rid of CYB. It's an interesting spot because James White himself has doubled down I don't want to say everybody, but like 70% of the community, just guessing here, just despises that card. And they banned the blue one, and they basically say, James, it was like a dev talk, I guess, or something. I remember him saying it. He's like, this is how I envision the fatigue strategy to be, right? Is like a CYB game plan, right? And, this is going to be the moment. Is he going to triple down? He's already doubled down. Is he going to triple down on that? And if he does, because we also have to factor in that maybe there are some more cards like, because Necro does a lot of graveyard interaction, maybe we get more tools that are actually like good tools that interact with the graveyard and help us mitigate that problem. So I think that will weigh in a lot. Is there any tools in high seas that can help us combat that? If the answer is yes. Also, the Bravo situation is going to ride a lot on what they know about Gravy Bones. If Gravy Bones has the ability, like Illusionists have in the past, to really check this strategy, then there's probably no solution needed. If I'm being 100% honest, I won't like the fact that it will exist. It is what it is. But if the solution is there, like it's not a problem today. Today it's not a problem because Florian exists. If Gravy Bones steps in and fills that spot that is Florian, then problem solved. And we can walk away and say our job is done. Okay? If Gravy Bone is not that solution, due to action point economy, due to cost of allies, whatever the case may be, let's make the assumption that he is not that solution. Then we have to go into the CYB remembrance discussion. And that was the second card that I was about to allude to. Spoiler alert. Is we have the CYB situation that James has the option to triple down on, which I'm not saying is right or wrong. I'm just saying that he's going to have to defend that stance for a second time, right? And we'll see. We'll see what happens. And from that point, right, let's say that there are tools in high seas and like he's going to triple down on CYB. Well, if that's the case, I think the next option is remembrance, because there's actually the Warriors can begin to actually target the deck with like Decimator Great Axe and cards like that if you remove their ability to keep putting Crippling Crush back in the deck. That one loop, I don't want to call it a loop because it's not definitive, it's not everlasting, but that whole strategy of putting the Crippling Crushes back into the deck to cycle them and play and resolve 12 of them completely invalidates any type of game plan of, oh, I'm going to outgrind you. Let me put in Decimator Great Axe. Because you know what beats Decimator Great Axe? When they don't have a blue to pitch for it. That's how you beat Decimator Great Axe. And Crippling Crush gives them the ability to do that. they'll just pitch into Rampart, value you out, get all the D-reacts out of their deck, and then they'll pitch stack you and just go crippling. Remember, it's crippling, and you're done. You're literally just done. Okay. With that being said, if you remove Remembrance, then now you have things like Rights and Evergreen, and I'm just using example of cards that classes and talents have that allow them to overcome a grindy fatigue situation. You bring validity to those cards, which is what we're trying to accomplish. Because when you only have 3 of those, and some of your Terra Sunders you're blocking with because you have to, stay alive. That's like the name of the game. Then, you accomplish that by removing Remembrance. Okay. Don't touch Remembrance. I need that card to even have a chance against Jarl as a Syndra player. What are you remembrancing in Syndra to beat Jarl? What is it, Wrath? If Remembrance is an issue, just play Gravekeeping. So instead of grabbing Crippling Crush, they grab Terra Sunder. Instead of grabbing Terra Sunder, they grab Starstruck. You can't Gravekeeping everything, right? Wait, no way you are remembrancing against Jarl. I gotta know what this dude's doing into Jarl. I'm so intrigued. Who was it? Wrath, Spreading Flames. Okay, that's kind of based. So, I guess that's it. Well, let's be honest. Who should win that matchup? Jarl or Syndra? Let's just play that out for a second. So that's my opinion, right? So we've identified, regardless of what the solution is, CYB, Remembrance, whatever the case is, we know that this has to be in the back of our mind when we hit Florian. This is the number one ripple that's going to happen with the reduction of Florian in the metagame. Okay. So, currently, summary for everybody just joining, because we're getting up there. Uh-oh. We got frames dropping. Come on, frames. We're back. Hey, I play Thaw and win that game. I respect it, bro. I respect it. If you remember it's Gravekeeping, you can keep Gravekeeping. Oh, God. Ugh. Where's the lie, though? Where is the lie is the question. Oh, that's so good. That is so good. Okay. So we have to solve these 2 problems. Okay. This is our main scenario we're trying to accomplish. This is the first ripple effect that we have to solve. We put forward, we're working in the context of 2 things. First, we can't hit high value cards. Anything $50 up, not even entertaining it, due to price sensitivity in regards to LL's early, or Aurora's early LL in proximity to the Armory deck. Number 2, we have to make sure we're effective in the ban. We can't take a chance for a precision ban. It's not the appropriate time. It took 3 to get Zen right. We had, the late ban on, Zephyr Needle. The community sentiment as a whole is really depending on this one to be thorough. Okay. So we have to overshoot rather than undershoot if we're going to at all. And if you have the magic weapon and you can hit the nail on the head, congratulations. They're just too good at their job. But it's a risk that you're taking. And so operating within those two contexts, we basically said that Death Dealer 3 of a kind could be on the table, but that is completely unrelated to anything we're seeing now. Had to do with the dev cycle. At the time High Seas was being developed, it gave the intention, or like the image of Azalea was that she was going to LL before High Seas released. And if the set was designed around that knowledge, there may be some adjustments needing to be made. Then we went to Florian. We said Reduce to Rune Chant was a great target, along with Scepter of Pain. Reduces Rune Chant generation. And we also mentioned Tiara / Book of Sudcliffe. And the idea of Tiara and Sudcliffe, not both, just one, is if you have a mirror match, you can basically have a situation where nobody can win the game. You can have a situation. You do have a situation where nobody can win the game if both decks are playing those cards. And I don't think that's very healthy. Maybe thought process. So that's currently where we stand. And then once we identified that once Florian took a hit, we had the possibility of Fatigue Bravo just coming up and being a possible problem. I might be a little bit biased there, a little opinionated. I'm willing to take that L, but just something to consider, basically. So now we have to answer the question: is Scepter and Reduced to Rune Chant is it enough? That's the ultimate question that we have to. And I'm gonna be honest, it makes the new matchup worse. It makes Assassin's not really giving you room to play or Mario's not going to give you room to play tree most of the time. Is it enough? Those two cards. Huh. We also don't want to completely obliterate Vincent. That is also, like, Read the Runes is a cool idea, but man, that can have some ripple effects. What other options do we have? Well, CYB goes, then you could take Reaping Blade and Scepter. Well, if you take CYB, you no longer need, like, Reaping Blade is no longer as good, right? You kind of like solve two problems in one on that one. I think Shelter should have been a 3-block. I don't disagree. I don't disagree there at all. Yeah, and Omar made a good point in chat. You can't. The reason we can't hit Fade or Sync right now is it basically has the same. It's the same inverse effect. You're costing. The price of Shelter would go up even more, which is the same net effect as burning a card worth money, right? And we don't want to do that. Can't Florian keep OTKing even without Scepter? And that's the question. It's not like, sure, he should have the ability to like have this fringe deck that somebody wants to build and have that strategy. Sure. But can he do it effectively is the question. And that's where we might have to get into maybe reduce to rune chain is not the answer, but maybe the combination of scepter and root bound is, because if you reduce root bound, right, then they're basically in a situation where to generate more rune chants, they have to get their hero ability online, which is much slower. And to do that, they're going to have to play cards. And also, they have to fulfill the earth requirement to fulfill those cards. And you are out of 3 block earth cards. So if you hit, to maintain the ratio, if you hit root bound, shitty earth card comes in that blocks less because you have to maintain your earth ratio. And at the same time, they have to lean more on offensive decomposition, which requires interaction, which fulfills what we're trying to accomplish. So I think, yeah, without Scepter, you also have, they can't stack because they can't filter. So if the opponent, that's a good point. That's a good point. They lose their ability to filter. Which means they have to pass turn. What heroes can actually take advantage of that? You basically have to have a mana dump on the board. Yeah, the more I think about it, just to make sure, like just to be, I know it hits Verdance maybe, but you might just have to hit Rootbound. I don't want to hit Verdance, but like, I don't think, once again, if we got Zen right the first time, I would probably entertain the idea of going for a reduced to rune chant ban to kind of, for like a precision attempt. But because we have to get this one 100% done, I think you got to overshoot with Redbound. Or Rootbound. I said Redbound. Rootbound Carapace. What about Runeblood Incantation? Is that the problem? Is a card that costs 1 with Go Again make 3 or 6 rune chant? I mean, with the Florian hero ability turned on, but that card without the root bounds, that card gets a lot worse, right? Because it blocks 2 when you draw it. You have to play it or it blocks 2, right? And if you increase the amount of time it takes to decompose, you also weaken that card. So I think Rootbound seems to be the easiest solution. I'm not saying it's the best. I'm saying that it's the only one we've came up with so far that's like, yes, this is enough. Genuinely, Rootbound ban would soft LL half of Rosetta. So you're saying that it would be such a hit on Verdance that she couldn't recover. Okay. I don't think it completely obliterates okay, so you're saying that Verdance literally relies on Rootbound. Okay, so what's our other option? If we're unwilling to concede the impact to Verdance in regards to Rootbound, what is our other option? How do we drastically affect the number of rune chants generated or decrease the runway Florian has to build the rune chants? Those are the 2 things we have to attack. Failing to 1 cannot happen. It's an expensive card. It violates the first rule I made. Jarl basically loses Earth Talent as well with Rootbound ban. I will say Rootbound Carapace is one of the most interesting Earth cards they've ever printed. I will admit that. Can we errata cards? That is an absolute last resort. Absolute. Hero specific bans are a long time coming. It creates friction because one more thing that people have to track, and it's a little bit, it's a little intense, people seeing cards. I don't like the idea of doing that, me personally. I don't think there should be a card that somebody can play that somebody else can't play. That it's confusing, it's not clean. I would vote nay on that one. Ban Arcane Seeds. Okay, sure. Arcane Generation, Earth 3 block. Life gain. Arcane Seeds. So the question would be, is Arcane Seeds and Scepter of Pain enough? Yeah. Everybody's on board with Scepter. At the very beginning, we basically said Scepter or Tree has to go. And they made a very good point that if that's the equation, you take Scepter because then you don't hurt the other Earth heroes, right? Because you're doing the same thing. You're just trying to basically negate that interaction. And if you're going to do that, take the one that has less collateral damage. Plain and simple, right? So everybody knows Scepter's got to go. Like that's just the driver behind not being interactive, which sucks because it's a cool ass weapon. But I just understand, is it just red root bound that should go? I mean, Florian plays all the colors, doesn't he? Literally. I actually don't like the idea of bans. I think it's just awkward that Florian doesn't have enough meta relevant counters right now. And that's the problem. We have a card pool issue that doesn't interact with the word aura. They're working on it because we see every single set. There's like 1 or 2 that kind of come in. But I agree. The problem is this has to be fixed now, and we can't wait for that solution, right? Malefic is not that impactful. It's not worth hitting. And you decimate Vincent. You actually just obliterate the hero if you take Malefic. Thistlebloom is interesting. And it does stop some of the rune chain generation, sure. I think Thistlebloom is an interesting choice, but the main thing is that I think you have to look at it from a perspective of, we're going to come back to the tier list when we come up with more ideas and have to look at the Ripple. But I just want to be able to look at chat directly. So we do. Thistle may not need to be banned if CYB goes, because I don't think Thistle sigils enough, right? Like, it's a cool line, and I think it's like just really cool. But you're right. What if the deck turns into Fertile Ground Thistle.deck, right? Like, and that's how you're generating rune chance. Although that takes a whole fucking hand to do. You're taking a lot of damage to do it. Thistle does not interact with the hero ability because it's one instance of rune chant generation. So in a world where you gain what? If you were to resolve Fertile Ground for 5, Sigil for 3, gain 1 off of life, that's total of 9 life gain. Thistlebloom, if you're online, would make 10 rune chance. Making 10 rune chance for 4 cards Is it a strong play? Yes. Is it broken? I don't think it is. Me personally. I think it's very cool, very unique, but I don't think it's a problem. Yeah, but playing, I guess I was only factoring in half of the equation. You made 10 rune chance, but you also gained 9 life. So it's a 4-card 19. God damn. Okay. It's a little good. My bad. I only factored in half of the equation. Yeah. Turns out that is why your math teachers wanted you to show your work this whole time. So turns out 4-card 19. Pretty good. Obviously it has to line up, but even if we like they mentioned in chat, you have 4 earth in the bin. Golly, man. That's wild. So it's really a 4-card 5. 4-card 19 if you have 4 earth cards in the bin, which took 15 damage to do. Oh, it's a 4-card 5 net is the difference, which is drastically different. Well, he's saying the net value gain over the turn cycle is 4, which is really good. Basically, he's saying that if you attacked for 16 and your opponent blocked for 12, you netted 4 value, right, in that interaction, which is like how you win games of Flesh and Blood, basically. So okay. So currently on the topic of discussion is reluctantly rootbound. It hurts all the other Earth heroes really badly, but it's something we have to at least consider. We know Scepter's got to go. I'm 100% on that one. Scepter of Pain got to go. Okay, but Scepter alone is 100% not enough. Okay, so then we have a couple ideas. So we have Scepter has to go. Rootbound is a reluctant maybe. And in the middle here, we have Arcane Seeds, Thistlebloom, and Reduced to Rune Chant. And maybe Read the Runes has been thrown around a lot. Is kind of where we're leaning at so far, which is, to be fair, we can't hit all of it. As much, I'm a Runeblade player at heart, okay? I can't take that much of a hit, okay? And yeah, so which one of those gives us our best solution? And you don't want to take like a whole laundry list of cards. Also, the number of cards it's impactful. You don't want to throw out a ban list and hit 10 cards, right? Like that's not an idea. It might have to be that way if that's how the cookie crumbles, but it's not an ideal situation. So with that being said, 100% on board with Scepter. We know that when Florian takes a hit, Bravo comes up. Okay, now let's go back to the tier list screen and let's run a theory or a ripple effect on the fact that Bravo has been fixed, Florian's been fixed, right? They're still relevant, but they're not dictating the meta, right? That's the key part. Obviously, like, I think at this point, did I put fine here? Okay, I did. Good. Aggro would creep back into the meta. You would have a failsafe of Jarl, which is good. It's great, actually. And then also, Prism has always been a failsafe for aggro because just like I mentioned the time that I broadcasted, Heralds hit harder than a screen door in a tornado. And she's a really good answer to that equation from it just resulting in some type of degenerate aggro format. Okay. The next question that I want to address is, what is the situation with Assassin? Is Assassin too good? And it's an honest question. Okay. We had a lot of people sit there and say, codex of frailty, things like that. We have to basically address the situation of, is it enough? Right. And, or what's the current status? Is Assassin too good? And we're mainly referring to Dagger Mario and just normal slipping is kind of what we Colin, we do not care about Azuri. Azuri, not relevant, right? Plain and simple. Failing would probably go down if Florian is no longer best deck in format. At least to $60. That's just down to 60 is insane. Assassin is absolutely too good. I mean, is it though? Okay, so let's look at this situation. So let's just do let's just assume that let's just take everything down. Let's put Assassin up here and let's analyze. Let's say if these 3 decks are running rampant in the format, or what deck can we bring, and is it not countered to Oblivion to counter these decks? That's the ultimate math problem that we're trying to solve here. Is what can we bring to win against these decks? And the answer is Warrior. Warrior historically. I'm not saying that that's the case right now because there's a lot of factors. There's some innovation that has to be had, right? These decks, there's a 2 rotation that has to happen, right? A meta is established. Adjustment. So you have meta definers, right? This is how I'm letting you in on the secrets on how I design these tier lists and everything. You have the meta definers, right? We're going to use in this meta Aurora, Florian, all these people, right? They are setting the meta. Metas always happen in 2 or 3 stages, okay? Let me explain. You have the meta definer, then you have the adjustment to the meta definer, okay? So this could be an example of, I'm going to play Kano because it dumpsters Florian. Or I'm going to play Vincent because it beats Aurora, right? That's stage 1. Stage 2. Now, those decks have been shown what gives them trouble. Now they have the opportunity to respond. Their reaction is on the stack. You like how I did that? And their reaction is going to come in the form of innovation. And that could be using the same examples. Maybe Florian utilizes Tiara to catch the Kanos off guard as a solution. And Aurora starts running Vaporize into, or was it Null Shock? What's the one that blows up the auras? Whatever that card is, that one into Vincent to blow up her Malefics, right? You have to give the other deck, or it could be like Aurora leans on the combo more, or whatever the case may be. You have to give the meta definers the too many people. This is where 90% of people, I'm giving away all my secrets here. Chat, I can't believe I'm doing this. 90% of people, when they make a tier list, this is where they fuck up. They say, meta definer, level 2 beats this. And then they go, level 3 beats that, right? That's been as old as TCG have ever existed. The problem is they don't go back and calculate the response. The response of when that happens. And it's very difficult to do, but if you have a lot of deep knowledge of understanding the game, you can kind of get to some good spots. And that's kind of like how I do a lot of mine. And so now, what I want to do this currently with Assassin and kind of walk you through my process on how I kind of evaluate that. So against Assassin, I like the idea of bringing Warrior. Okay, Warrior historically has been a great answer to Assassin all around. You're correct. Tiara does not stop Kano 100%. In fact, as of right now, that is like a 95-5 matchup in Kano's favor. I'm saying that there's innovations that happen, right? So we'll use that as an example, right? Florian gets beat up by Kano. They play Tiara. Kano then says, okay, if you're going to play Tiara and you get rid of your rune chance, I'm going to add a remembrance to renew my scours. And I'm just, instead of scouring you 3 times, I'm going to scour you 6 times. And then Florian says, fuck it, I lose. That's where it ends up, right? And that's where we're at today, where literally, you have to run through the entire process before you actually get there. Okay. So Assassins. Because we had an argument in chat a point of that Assassins could possibly be too good in the upcoming meta. Let's check that. Assassins do really good into these ninjas, right? A lot of disruption. They can outvalue. Nu can have some hard time because she kind of can't keep up with the straight line value. But Slippy can fill that void. If Syndra and Fi become like the deck, Slippy's going to fuck some people up. I mean, just going to ruin some days, okay? And so that's Assassin's got that beat. Same thing for Ranger. Ranger just does not have the capabilities to compete with Assassin when they have that much arsenal disruption. Warrior, though, that's the question, okay? So if Warrior comes up, can the Assassin player shift to an Assassin that helps that matchup? Okay, so I'll just give you an example. Let's say Slippy is just dog shit into Warriors, right? Is there a version of a different Assassin that they can go to as part of that adaptation or that response to the counter? And that's where I would see a shift back to Mario. Okay. Because the whole reason that Warrior historically is beaten Assassin is because they deny the value of on hits because they have a big fridge, some D-reacts, they have the whole package, right? And you don't get any of your value from on hits unless the Warrior wants you to, which is not good. Which means Slippy just gets taken out. Nu just can get decimated by the wrong snag at the wrong time, right? And we're also seeing the inclusion of dual-wielding Warrior kind of coming back into the meta, which was really a problem for Nu specifically because they do really good on low hand sizes. They block very efficiently. Blossoming Mistblade is not even a card because of dynamos. I mean, there's a lot of things to consider in that matchup. So Nu, believe it or not great into dual-wielding Warrior, in my opinion. So Mario kind of takes the torch at that point. It's on Mario to solve that. Now we're looking at the dagger kind of Mario deck, and I think that it does have the toolkit. Basically, you just have to go. You go all defensive out, and you just go full balls to the walls value offense. And I think you can get there. And maybe you don't get it. I'm not saying that you would get it to a positive win rate. What I am saying is you turn in an unfavorable matchup that's 75-25 into something along the lines of 60-40 or 55-45, whatever the case may be. Okay. Fang is just the GOAT. And Fang's another, realm of possibility that's also going to dictate on how Jarl's doing and other things like that. But yes, I'm saying there is a Warrior that will rise to the occasion to challenge the Assassins. And then the Assassins will shift to Mario. and then Mario will have to answer. He will either his only option in his toolkit is to go full offensive to counter that strategy. Okay. That's the only thing left on the table for assassins. Azuri's not a hero. I don't care what Colin says. And the other Arachne is also, he takes up space on tier list. That's about it. And yeah, so that's the current. Is there any other deck that can truly just challenge Assassin? And Jarl cannot. It's actually a pretty rough matchup for Jarl, to be honest. Same for Bravo, if assuming they do fix the whole fatigue situation kind of thing. Wizard has always been in a tough spot against Assassin ever since they got the AB and Spell Void. It's very tough. Prism does really good into Assassin. Double check me on that, chat. I saw Kevin in here earlier. Kevin, if you're still there, or hell, if Andrew Cook's in here, I saw him way earlier, I think. If anybody knows a lot of Prism, I'm 90% sure it does well into Assassin. But fight me on it or confirm it, whatever you choose. So therefore, the point that I'm trying to make is we've already identified basically two decks that can kind of challenge the fact that Assassin is too good. Therefore, I honestly, truly don't think Assassin necessarily deserves a ban. Prism doesn't do well into Azuri. God damn it, Collins. You're kind of right, though. You're right, but to like literally no point. It doesn't matter. But technically, you are right. Struggles in the spectrum. Okay, I'll take everybody's word for it. So, yeah, so there are enough counters to actually challenge that. Okay, so it is in my opinion that I don't think Assassin needs to catch a hit or whatever the case may be. Okay, so with that being said, can I just throw everybody down here? Okay. So are there any other decks that could be, if we hit Florian, is there anything else that rises up and kind of like really is a problem? Let's have a conversation about the ninjas just real quick. Because that's kind of like the first thing that kind of comes to my mind. You obviously have the counter of Jarl. I think Jarl should do really good into these heroes. He can at least be built in a way to where he can be, right? Also, you have the assassins that can kind of pick on this matchup. Slippy more so than Mario, but yes. So yeah. So here you have a healthy number of options. You also have Prism. Very good option. So here you have a healthy number of decks that can combat the ninjas just going degen aggro. Okay, so you no longer have the threat of just degen aggro, everybody just sitting down and racing. Okay, I'm not saying that the ninja players can't innovate. I'm not saying that. They can throw some poppers in. They can find a deck that's so efficient that you can just race Slippy. Good fucking luck. But maybe they find something, some card, I don't know. Maybe they have like a mid-range version, like I don't know. Maybe they find something. I don't know. Up the blue count for Jarl. Whatever the case may be. Syndra has Mask of the Pouncing Lynx, or Kasai gets a buy from it. Sure. But Kasai's bad. You must have missed that part, Nick. No, we're not actually doing a tier list. What we're just using this to understand ripple effects of bans. So basically what we're doing is we thought of a couple options to ban cards for Florian. We saw a dip down. We saw a problem, aka Giga Fatigue Bravo. And we said, okay, well, what's a scenario where we fix that with a ban? Okay. Now we're looking at the meta as a whole and asking ourselves, are there any outliers that are now producing a problem in the meta game? Did just like when Enigma left the format, it introduced decks doing non-interactive things. We're doing a safety check essentially for that same thing. We're looking, is Assassin too good? Is Ranger too good? Is this too good? Yeah, we're just doing a pulse check on if these decks drop, are we still safe? And for the most part, it seems like we are. It seems like there's nothing. I've seen a lot of people throw out the words wildfire. I think hero wins one event, it's good now. No. Definitely. Yeah. Andrew, amazing player. 100%. Amazing player. Kasai, not it. But Nathan, they won a battle harden. Who knew? That Remembrance Syndra tech sounds promising. I can't tell if that's honest or if it's shade. Oh man. So that's kind of so. Let's discuss wildfire. Let's just so we can have that conversation. Seems like a lot of people are kind of stuck on it, and I get it. But so the idea is like maybe it's not a healthy card, okay, and just up and blows people up. They did reduce the volatility of it by hitting Tome of Aetherwind. That was a very good ban. But there's still a lot of like, they just have it sometimes. And Kano is currently poised, before the changes, is currently poised to be a very, very good deck in the meta. Like top 3, in my opinion. I think Kano is really, really well positioned currently. That could very easily change, but he's sitting pretty right now. The problem is if you take Wildfire, I'm going to keep it a buck. What does the deck even do? Like honestly, if you do not have Aether Wildfire, how does Kano win a game of Flesh and Blood? I don't understand how you win. You have to go back to. You can't even go back to Fork Lightning because didn't they change the rules on like how AMP applies to it or whatever the case may be? Like it's a literal. It becomes probably the worst deck in the game. Forked Lightning, my God, those were the days, bro. Those were the days. Shout out to everybody who stuck with Kano through those through those times. It wasn't a bad deck, but man, that was a different format. If we're talking like, it's like taking High Octane away from Mex. I mean, look, maybe nah, that's a little aggressive. That's a little aggressive. I mean, the High Octane's good, but like the Mex still like can sit down and make a decent 60 card deck. You might not win in some games, but like, you know. So for that reason alone, I don't think you can touch Wildfire. Now, do you hit something else? Maybe. I don't know. You can hit nodes or Ragamuffin. I don't fucking know. I'm just saying that you can't hit Wildfire. As somebody who previously has called for that card to be banned, I think I did like a year or two ago. I forget. I just don't see it. I just do not see, unless you had an expansion slot card that served as a direct replacement already lined up. You just can't get rid of that card. You just literally cannot. So far, I would say the ripple effects from Florian being hit, it seems like the only one that drastically needs to be addressed is Giga Fatigue Bravo. That's like, that's the only one. Everything else seems like there's some answers. We're good. We're not banning Kano cards. We're just, there were some people calling for Wildfire. I had to explain why that's a bad idea. But once there's some urgency back in the format with like ninjas and stuff like that, I think you're fine. I literally think you're fine. Sorry, chat. I dropped frames for a second. I made sure to pause and not say anything while that was happening. But I think we're back. Yeah. So, okay. So we did our ripple analysis and it actually came up pretty safe. There was no like nothing to be super scared about, except for maybe Giga Fatigue Bravo. So we have maybe ban Death Dealer, depending on whether it was factored in designing High Seas. Or Three of a Kind, we mentioned that. One of those two cards. That's not based on anything currently. That's future stuff. Then we have possibly unbanning bonds for Katsu. Then we have the hit on Florian, which we have decided 100% that the scepter has to go. The scepter is the root of 90% of the problem. Okay. Scepter has to go. And then in the middle tier, we had basically Thistlebloom, Arcane Seeds, Read the Runes, and Reduce to Rune Chant. For a kind of medium solution, right? Not all of those cards. I'm saying pick two, basically, is the point I'm getting at. Or maybe even one. I don't know. And then as like a very aggressive, like, holy shit, we're burning down the forest. We have to do this right. Rootbound Carapace. That would like do it, right? And then because of that, it would create a ripple effect that I identified in Giga Fatigue Bravo. Okay. And I might just be biased on this one. I'm willing to be wrong here, but I see a situation where it could lead to some unhealthy play patterns, especially for newer players. And that can be remedied by a CYB complete ban or a remembrance ban. Pick or choose. Don't need both. Just one or the other. If you remove CYB, then you have the ability to where you actually have the potential to rush them down. Ninjas are much more effective against it. Obviously, and really makes it a free matchup. Warriors can then actually entertain the idea of fatiguing if they don't have CYB. I mean, there's just a lot. So that's what we're looking at. Ranger collateral damage for the new set. Can Katsu players get bonds back? Scepter has to go. No negotiating. Arcane Seeds, Thistlebloom, Reduce to Rune Chant, Read the Runes are optionals. Very aggressive angle would be Rootbound Carapace and then Remembrance or CYB. That is our ban. 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 That is our prediction. And you mentioned in chat CYB is great for the game. Just give us better relevant graveyard hate. That's a great point. And I mentioned when I went over the CYB section that if that is in the design pipeline very soon, aka high C's, then Remembrance is the better ban. That's why I gave you the option, not both, right? I'll give Scepter props for at least being interesting. I mean, yeah, it's a very cool card from a design perspective. You just can't print a card that amps it. Like, there should not be a card in the game that amps that weapon. You just, and once again, I don't think Scepter is broken as a card. I think there's many, many ways to beat it. It just incentivizes non-interaction. That is the whole basis of the ban, is we're trying to not incentivize players to play. If you want to do some fringe strategy that's not really good, that's non-interactive at your army, like, cool. Like, you do your thing, right? But it's bad if it's meta. Like, it should not. Yeah. I want Tree to be the thing to leave. I mean, you could do it that way, and that's what I actually proposed first, was taking Tree instead of Scepter. The problem with that is then you're damaging burdens for essentially no reason, because you're just trying to remove that interaction. But yes, I think it's a comparable ban. I think Scepter just takes the edge by a little bit, but it's very comparable. I started with how is blocking not interactive? How is blocking not interactive? That's the question. So, because there's no, okay. If all you're trying to do is build a board of things I can't do anything about, the blocking sure is interactive. It is the lowest form of interaction in the game. Yes, technically. Blocking is by definition a form of interaction. The problem is everything that you're trying to do, I cannot interact in any way. And I already know it's coming in the chat. Well, what about Spectra and Illusionist and Auras and all that shit? I can attack a Spectra. I may not want to. It may not feel good, but I can do that. If I'm 10 different classes in the game currently that have no card in their toolkit that says, when this hits, remove this many auras, then I'm just fucked. Every rune chant you make, there's not a damn thing I can do about it. And that's where the non-interactive aspect comes in. So yes, technically, blocking is interactive. That is a fact. It's the rune chants that are non-interactive. A normal fatigue strategy is interactive, right? The opponent has developed a game plan. I've done whole streams on how to beat fatigue decks, and I enjoy it, actually. It's actually some of my favorite, but you can't overcome rune chants. There's just not cards that exist that do shit to them. There just isn't. And it's literally that simple. There's no list per se, but I am going to do a summary tweet tomorrow to kind of say this is what we kind of landed on. Florian mid-range is still best deck. I don't think he is. Like, was he before? I think mid-range Florian, I think the assassins can actually compete. Because if you strip a card from their hand, it's actually very relevant. And that was also the main consideration for the root bound idea, was to really just. He's definitely best deck in format before. Is he? You're saying if Florian had to go mid range, then his only negative matchups are Wizard and Fang? So hang on. Let's do an analysis. Okay. So if you're saying we're currently talking about only mid-range Florian. Okay. I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. You know what the best way to beat mid-range Florian is? To fatigue the ever-living shit out of him. Reaping Blade for 3/2/2 is not that much threat density if you stop it. Jarl would beat the shit out of this deck. I think Assassins, if built correctly, could legit fatigue Florian. This is all predicated on the fact that by the bans we have forced Florian into a mid-range strategy. Okay. Levia beats the shit out of Florian. Maybe not. That's a little aggressive. Fang, sure. I think he's just susceptible to fatigue. The Warriors can fatigue him. I've done it on Dawnblade. If it's mid-range, I'm telling you, try it. It sounds a little unintuitive, but I promise you, they get juiced every time. How do you survive 3 Germinate late game? Well, okay. I guess that's a good point because I have to explain this a little better. When I say fatigue, what I'm actually meaning is fatigue via damage. Okay. So imagine you're Mario and you're like dagger for 12, dagger for 12, dagger for 12, dagger for 12. Florian's got 3 different plays he can make. He can either throw felling, throw plow under. You never put an arsenal down to avoid plow under, right? He's basically got one move, and that's felling of the crown. Everything else, you're going to rush him down so quickly that he will have no choice but to either pitch that Germinate first cycle or and then when he sees it second cycle, his life total will be low enough to where he won't be able to, actually do anything meaningful with it, basically. Yeah, I should have clarified that a little better. I'm basically referring to, because mid-range Florian just can't utilize his whole hand. He just can't do it. It's not capable. You probably need Cosmic Awakening to fatigue Florian is new. No, all you need is Mask. Just banish all his blue cards. Still kind of a rough matchup, though, to be honest. Not super comfortable. I think Dagger Mario probably feels a lot better. How to fatigue mid-range Florian. Hit him for 12 every turn. Literally. Literally. Sounds super unintuitive. But I promise try it. And you'll be like, damn. Yeah, we're all 100% on board with the fact that Scepter's got to go. That's the first thing that everybody unanimously agreed to. His Scepter has got to fucking go. So who fatigue first, KO or Florian? Honestly, well, you have Claw. KO's got the damage, so the consistent damage, a lot of armor, pressure on hits. KO might could fatigue Florian. Now that I think about it. It might be one of those situations where you might board up to like 65 or something like that, but from a theory standpoint, even with the discards, because your average card threat density is a lot higher than normal, I think the discard would become a wash. Especially because you also get refunded a little bit on. It really depends, though. I'm saying this as someone who played Florian ever since he got released. My first hero. Well, things are about to change. Reinar or Florian? Reinar should give mid-range Florian some trouble. I think the question we do have to answer, honestly, though, is what happens if mid-range Florian starts leaning on CYB? And maybe that's the reason, because that's a way to convert the full hand. And you could kind of solve that problem. It also solves the fatigue problem because there's less cards you have to block because you have bigger threat density. So that could be the reason on why we go with the CYB ban over Remembrance in the situation of the Bravo later down the road for the ripple effect. Just a thought. But can he run CYB with Reaping Blade? Is there another alternative? He could go Dread Scythe. I mean, you can still use Dread Scythe for there's options. I'm just saying that there's solutions. There are solutions. All right. Well, I have been going for like almost 3 hours, and almost the whole time we got up to 300 and just chilled there. I was sick. I was absolutely sick just to predict some bans. So I'm gonna give a final solution of what we're basically going to predict. Okay. Once again, recapping everything. The context of the banning situation created 2 rules. We cannot ban any high value cards, aka Felling, Plow, Legendaries, things like that. Shelter, whatever the case may be. We cannot touch those cards due to community sentiment revolving around the quick LL post armory deck with Aurora. Okay. Second rule was with the Zen bans recently kind of being a miss. We're in a situation in the late ban on Zephyr Needle. we need, from a community sentiment point of view as well, we need this ban to be accurate. Like, we need it to be effective. At the conclusion of the ban, we would much rather ban way too much than not enough. That is the number one goal when we actually move to apply the fix. Going into the bans, so we had to operate within those two rules. Going into the bans, we present the idea of Death Dealer / 3 of a kind, not predicated on anything currently in the game. The idea was maybe while they were designing High Seas, Azalea was doing very, very well, winning callings left and right, and could have designed High Seas with the thought process that Death Dealer will not exist in the game. Okay. So that could create some friction, and maybe they have to adjust. That is pure speculation, could not happen, could not even need to happen. Pure speculation. The second possible ban would be the unbanning of bonds for Katsu. And the thought process is that it was balanced before Zen. Why is it not balanced after? Basically, it's a legitimate question to ask, basically. LSS is just going to decide, do they want to have to design around that card or not? And that's a fair assessment, and they'll make that decision. But from a balanced perspective, I don't see why not, unless there's something broken with the new card that recently came out that changes its name to whatever. But moving on to Florian, what is actually going to get banned is we unanimously across the board just about agreed that Scepter's got to go. Scepter or Tree, one of those cards, okay? Scepter or Tree have to go, non-negotiable. One of those cards got to go, okay? There's pros and cons to either one, right? You take Scepter, you avoid any collateral damage to really anybody, but specifically Verdants. But Scepter's a really cool card, right? And so there is, and it's a weapon, things like that. So there's plus and minuses on all ends. Moving into because we know that Scepter's not enough. You can't just take Scepter. It does not fulfill the second rule that we created, that at the conclusion of the ban, we have to be 100% positive that Florian is basically not allowed to be the best deck in the format. That's basically, it doesn't need to end there, but if we know we did our job, if he's not there, basically is how we get full confirmation that we did it correctly. So, post Scepter, still regarding Florian, we have two options. We reduce his ability to generate rune chants, or we reduce his defensive capabilities to shorten the game to decrease the time in which he can accumulate rune chants. So either decrease rune chants or decrease the time he has to make rune chants. Okay? And we came up with a couple of possible solutions for that. Reduce to rune chant kind of fills both those spots. Arcane Seeds, Thistlebloom, and Read the Runes are some cards that kind of came to mind. I am not suggesting in any way, shape, form, or fashion all of those cards. That would be drastic overkill, completely unnecessary. I'm just saying pick one or two of them, whatever the case may be. Okay? So Scepter, gotta go. Pick one in the next section of 4 cards, maybe 2, whatever you're feeling. But if you really, there's another level where if you just really want to make sure you're getting the job done, like this is like, we can't afford for a tree to stand, so we have to burn the whole forest down, and you take down Rootbound Carapace in all colors. This does hurt the other Earth heroes. That's a huge collateral damage, but once again, given the community sentiment, it may be a necessary risk that you have to take to guarantee the situation. So basically, Scepter plus Rootbound would be like donezo, right? Like you are going to play mid range and you're going to kind of be a little worse at it too. It's like just guarantee that it happens that way. So that takes care of the Florian situation. But then we quickly realized in our Ripple analysis that the next deck to rise up that could present a problem would be Giga Fatigue Bravo. Basically, triple remembrance, 12 crippling crush, Bravo. And there's two bans that you could make. Does not have to be the same one. It's two bans. You can either ban CYB to reduce the runway of the deck and reduce the threat density, actually give it the ability to be fatigued, or you have the ability to take away remembrance. Either one of those cards kind of fulfills that somewhat solution, but you do have to manage the fact that if you don't take CYB, you have to study the implications of CYB going into mid-range Florian. And if that's the case, if mid-range Florian becomes too good without the previous bans, then you might have to take CYB over remembrance to protect yourself from that. Okay? So that would conclude. We then went through Assassin. We went through all the different heroes. We went through ninjas. We went through everything and said, is this too oppressive? Is this too good? And we basically came to the conclusion that the assassins were not too good. There was counterplay there. They had some bad matchups, good variety, and not just overly abundantly good into anything. Kano theoretically should not go out of control. He's a very good deck. Kano was kind of the next deck that was like on the conversation piece, but if Florian leaves, I think Prism takes up a lot more real estate and can kind of sway that away. Take 5 cards from Florian. I did not say take 5 cards from Florian. I said take Scepter, pick 1 or 2 of the middle cards, and that would complete your ban. Or if you want to go balls to the walls, you go Scepter and Rootbound Carapace. Not 5 cards. But don't hit Bonds? Are you talking about Bonds of Agony? I mean, I don't think 1 or 2 of the middle cards just kills Florian. Rootbound kills Florian. That's the whole fucking point. I'm going to restate the second rule that I gave. It took them 3 ban tries to get the Zen ban at an appropriate power level. Then they were late on the Zephyr Needle ban. Do you think it's a good idea to run the chance of making an adjustment to Florian and coming up short? If you had the keys to the kingdom, do you take the risk? We don't want to remove the hero from the game. I want to know for 100% fact it's not S tier. That is my goal that I'm trying to accomplish. And that's not the end result that I want. It's what I have to do to guarantee that I'm successful. Because if I come up short, you run the risk as LSS, if we're just basically role-playing as if we are LSS, right? You run the risk of your community losing confidence in the ability of banning correctly, which is not good, right? That's the idea, is we're trying to prevent that from happening. So So even if he's still a good deck, Scepter means there is plenty of counterplay. So even if he's still a good deck, Scepter means... What? I don't even understand what that means. If Florian isn't fixed with just Scepter, he gets Aurored. Exactly. Right. There's that, and then everybody's going to think that they can't ban correctly. Why would we have confidence with that already? They left Flicker in the game. That's the point that I'm trying to make. Is there's been back-to-back cases of shortcomings, and you don't want to add to that list. So if you have an option, right? Option one is you obliterate the hero. And when I say obliterate the hero, I don't mean make them F tier. I mean ban enough cards to where you, without a shadow of a doubt, know the problem is solved. That's what I mean. Whatever that results in doesn't matter. That's option one. Option two is kind of that middle ground where, like, you're pretty sure it's going to work because you're overshooting it by a little bit. And then that's the option you can take. Or you can attempt a precision ban, right? You could attempt a precision ban, which is attempting to basically ban the precise amount necessary to fix the situation. What I'm saying is, if you do that and you miss, you are fucked. Nat season is fucked. Everybody's already on edge about not in the US about not having time to prepare for Nats. You have short printing situations. It's a fucking mess if this is not done correctly. Okay? So if I had the keys to the kingdom, I would never even attempt a precision ban in this scenario. It is too risky. It is so risky. I could not do it. Maybe you could. Maybe you have the answer that's like, oh, I'm so good at my job. I know exactly what to take. I know exactly what all 16,000 Flesh and Blood players are going to react, and this is exactly how the meta will develop. If you have those answers, then, like, cool, you got it, right? But clearly that's not the case. So that's the basis. I'm not saying we need to, like, put Florian in the grave for the sake of doing that. I'm saying that the situation has presented an environment to where it's better safe than sorry. That's what I'm saying. LSA should have been proactive and manned up with Flicker Wisp. Yeah, I mean, they admitted that on the dev talk. They said that in hindsight they should have done something, right? And mistakes happen. It is what it is. But you don't want to run the risk of doing that again a couple weeks later. That's all I'm going to say. So I'm not trying to bully Florian players. Not the goal here. Not the goal here. Sad to potentially lose Scepter and Rootbound, but that's probably the safe route to preserve the hero. And that's what I'm saying. I think hitting Scepter only does enough, and hitting more puts him in the grave. I completely disagree. I don't think hitting just Scepter is enough. That's my opinion. And hitting more of him puts him in the grave. Banning Scepter lets every deck that had to have AB3 now have AB1. And what does that do? What does having more equipment into Florian solve? Don't you think another issue is trying to balance card design for limited and constructed? Of course, yeah. I mean, that's always a factor. And it's It's one of the most difficult things for sure. If LSS does mess up, is there ever a world where you see yourself leaving the game? Because I actually could never see me leaving. Me personally, I mean, I I I will never stay attached. If I don't enjoy the game, like the second I don't cling on to things. The second I stop enjoying making content, I'm going to stop making content. The second I stop enjoying the game, truly, I'll stop playing the game. Me personally, as a player, I care a lot less about balancing aspects, but the stuff that really, really gets me are the things like having nats on release day and that kind of stuff. That's the stuff that grinds my gears, personally. New gets legs, armor, other assassins get their react pieces, guardians get tunic. I mean, sure, but you're just gonna you still stack rune chance. It's just less, right? Like that's the problem. So now instead of getting more rune chance off of your tree combo, now you put in fertile ground and you rely on fucking Thistlebloom. I don't know. I'm just saying the problem is the fucking rune chance. That's the problem, not the opponents getting armor slots. That has nothing to do with anything. Like literally. The problem with Florian is him building rune chance is non-interactive. So therefore, from a design and balance perspective, you have to do two things. You have to either reduce his ability to make rune chance by a decent margin, or you have to increase the amount of time it takes for him to build said rune chance, which gives aggro decks more of a window to rush him down. Those are the two things that have to happen. They both don't have to happen. One of them has to happen, but you have to have a lot of direction in one way or the other. What do you think about banning Reaping and Scepter while banning... I don't think there's any reason to ban Scepter and Reaping. That seems unnecessary. CYB's on the table, 100%. Reaping, Scepter, CYB. I don't understand why we're doing both. Are we just forcing him into Dreadsight? Is that the play? So that way he gets diminishing returns on hero ability because he can't grasp. I mean, sure, that is a way to balance. I don't know if we need to take all the Rune Blade weapons out in one go. What do you think about banning Reap? We already did that one. They should have made Rune Chance expire after 3 turns. I mean, that window's gone. So that's kind of irrelevant. What other stopgaps do you see in design of current fab? Is there adequate enough item destruction? The biggest design limitation that I can see in fab, we actually haven't even approached yet. And that is the simple cost of cards or the stat lines of cards. Let's look at a game like Magic the Gathering as an example. You have attack, defense, just like you do. If it's a creature, of course. You have attack, defense, just like a card, if it's an attack, has an attack and defense value. But the cost is the important thing, right? In Flesh and Blood, a card can cost 0, can cost 1, it can cost 2, it can cost 3, it can cost 4, and so on. In Magic the Gathering, it can cost 1 red, 2 black, 3 blue, 1 green. If you were to build out a spectrum of statistical possibilities of ways you could influence how much a card actually cost. There are, I don't want to use the word infinitely more, but there's a fuck ton more of options than there are in Flesh and Blood, right? You can't go 2.5 in Flesh and Blood. You can't go 3.5. It just doesn't work that way, right? So the biggest design limitation I see that we're not approaching right now, but it will be a problem down the road, is the limitation of scale built within the system. I think. I'll try again, LL. Any chance we see a mech ban or a Spark of Genius ban? I've said that Spark of Genius was like the best mech card for a long time, other than High Octane, obviously. It's good enough to ban, but I mean, mech's not in a position where I think it really needs to be banned, in my opinion. Just release a bunch of destroy aura cards in every class. I mean, we wouldn't have this problem if every class had those. But at the same time, those cards would probably have to hit. And Florian's a very defensive deck with a lot of armor, and there's other problems. Making sure that he would just go mid-range and remain best deck. Someday Flourish Rotwood will live. We'll see. Yeah, Puffin could break Spark of Genius. It's entirely possible. I think Puffin's going to be insanely good. Insanely good. All right. I've been going for 3 hours. 3 hours. I want to thank everybody for joining me. I really do appreciate it. It means the world for everybody to come. And thank you for sharing your ideas. I am so sorry if I missed your comments in chat. I wish I could explain what it's like sitting in this seat and watching it just fly. I tried my best to keep up, and I didn't want to break my thought process every 5 seconds to keep up with chat. I probably missed hundreds of things that were put into chat. And if you want to make sure that I get it, I invite you to just leave a comment on the video, and I'll always check those. So if I did miss your comment in chat, please just post a comment. I would love to answer it. It was not intentional. I just literally, it was fine. You guys were killing it. There were opinions left and right, good, bad, all of it. It was great. It was a great discussion. I learned a lot, and I hope you did as well. Obviously, this is not going to be a perfect prediction, but I just wanted to kind of throw some ideas out, and kind of the main purpose I wanted to accomplish with this stream is give everybody an idea of how complicated a ban situation is for a card game. It is actually insane how much goes into it. Reprint Florian in 2026. That was low. That was low. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of thought that goes into it. You have to look at ripple effects. You have to look at like community sentiment and the current standings, and just a ton of stuff. Thanks for the stream. I appreciate it, Jacob. Thank you for joining me. GG. Thanks for the stream. I appreciate it. Popular man problems. I mean, we'll take it. No worries. Thanks for the stream. I appreciate it. And like I said, if I missed anything, feel free to throw it in the comment section. I would love to answer it at a later moment in time, but I'm going to go to sleep. I'm kind of tired, been turning and burning on the brain a little bit, and I have an Alabama education system, so I'm not used to it. But we're going to adapt. And I wish everybody the best of luck this weekend at their ProQuest. I hope you have an amazing time seeing your locals / semi-locals. It's always a favorite time of mine, getting to see everybody and talking with them and just catching up. It's always a great time. So best of luck to everybody. And I will see everybody